We can't hear him because of a computer glitch, but he can hear us.
Okay, we'll look for his sign language.
So we may have to have him type it in. He has a comment at this point. Apologize.
Sounds good. Thank you. I would invite all of you to rise and join us with the pledge of allegiance, and that with Shelley to lead us in that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And again, we probably don't say it enough, but I'm grateful for our city staff that's here with us, our city manager, city recorder, and the true brains behind all the operations of the city. Scarlett, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
won't take credit for all of that, though.
What we're going to start with is our first item will be the approval of the minutes. So I hope everybody had a chance to look at those, and if anybody had any comments.
Just one from me on line 58, if we could change cities, CITIES to city, CITY''s. Show.
Just one small one for me on line 95. Just change Mondays plural to every Monday.
I've got one line 70. Already discussed Aaron Walker's apostrophe S letter. Yeah, I think that key was broken.
It's okay, sounds good. Brian, did you have anything, Brian, for us, or?
I
In regards to
have
the
not.
minutes?
I wasn't able to make it last week, so I will be abstaining on any vote up or down on the notes. Or the, minutes.
We can't hear you, so we would invite you to text us something or give us a thumbs up. Thank you. We'll go with that. I would entertain a motion regarding our minutes. If someone from the commission would like to.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the suggested corrections.
I have a motion by Shelley Hazer and a second by Tyler Riggs to accept the minutes with the corrections added. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Brian? Thumbs up? Thumbs down?
No.
Probably sideways.
His sound is,
Yes,
For your sound.
we can hear him now.
Okay.
okay, I abstain. I was not in attendance
Yep.
for the last meeting. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.
Got a quick question.
Yes.
Am I a voting member until Joe gets here or something?
Yes. Yes, you are. Okay. And let's see, because that's 1, 2, 3, 4. With Brian is 5. Yep. Okay. Sounds good.
Well, 5, Brian, would be, you have a 7-member quorum. At
Or
least
this is
2
one.
alternates, right?
Yeah, we have 2. So
So you have one that's not a voting member.
Bob is not.
All right,
At this.
Bob Pinky is not. Bob Washburn is.
Yes.
there we go.
Maybe we'll go with Little Bob and Big Bob. Something like that. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Okay, we're going to open it up for public comments. This section of the agenda is really for comments in regards to general things or comments about anything about the city, things like that. If you have a comment about an item on the agenda, I invite you to wait until that agenda item comes up to speak directly to them. So I'd open the floor if there's anybody that has a general comment regarding anything other than the agenda items. Tyler, do you know if we've had any emails come, text messages? Okay. Okay, thank you. So If no one has any comments in general, we will close that portion of our agenda for public comments. And we'll move on to the public hearing for item number 1 in the agenda, a rezone of parcel 02-092-0018. The Providence City Planning Commission will take comments and questions from the public regarding a request from DLMAC LLC to rezone parcel 02-092-0018 from R-1-12 to R-1-6. This parcel is generally located at 291 North, 100 East in Providence. So this is a request that this piece of property go into about 4 or 5 lots. Would that be correct, Eddie? We have the owner here, representative for the owner, by contract and stuff. So what we do is invite the public to make comments or ask questions, depending on what the questions are. We might ask Danny to come forward and address some of those kind of things, so that we can help get the answers for everybody. So in regards to this, I would invite you to come to the microphone, state your name, and then present your questions or comments. So do we have anybody that would like to do that?
I've already talked with Danny. I can speak loud enough, you can hear me.
Yeah, I need you to state your name though, please.
Rocky Taylor.
Rocky Taylor.
I live at 233 North 100 East. There's 2 houses between mine and this proposed development.
We needed a mic so that we can do it online.
Well, that's right.
Because
We
it's
have
live
online,
streamed.
And we've got to be able to record it. So
He definitely has a loud enough voice that we can hear here, but we do need him to
I
record
do
that
need to
way.
ask you to come forward.
I moved to that house. It was an Astle home in 1981. It was a dead end street. My kids rode their bikes in the street. And we had really nice, quiet neighborhood. It's changed a lot since then, and it just keeps changing and changing. And what can I do about it? I've talked with Danny, and he's allayed some of my concerns. I have a water turn on the Blacksmith Fork irrigation. That water, I can't handle all the water when it's my turn. I've been letting it go, and Linhart's have been happy to use it. But there's going to have to be some provision for that, or it'll impinge on my ability to use the water and manage it. He says that they're planning to put in an ice pipe. Even with that, if that water is not managed, it's going to go right on down into the that other development down there, the 50+ thing. And I think that's going to cause some problems for people if that's not planned for. And I don't want to be held responsible for being unable to control all of the water that's mine.
Yeah.
So that's an important consideration. And I think probably, I think that's all I have to comment about for now.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see here, just to make sure I get my notes here. Okay. Do we have anybody else that would like to make a comment, public comment regarding this? Yes, please feel forward. Please feel free to come forward.
I'm Hal Hansen. I live on the corner house right next to Rocky, only my house faces south. I live right on the northwest corner of that intersection at First West and Second North, or First East and Second North. What I'd like to find out, maybe Danny could come up here and kind of give us an overview of what exactly they're trying to do. How many houses they want to build there, what kind of parking provisions, you know, all the general stuff that everybody would want to know. Is that all right if?
Yes, I think, I don't see that as a problem at all. You'd certainly be able to invite him up.
Because, you know, I've got water share on that same stream Rocky has.
Okay.
I use all my water. In fact, I use I use it all the time when it's available during the summer. Because I have a huge side yard that I flood irrigate. But I'm concerned about the water situation too, what they're gonna do with. So, Danny, can you give us some idea?
Give me just a minute, Al. I appreciate that. I want to make sure anybody else that would like to make a comment before we invite Danny up to come and do that. The other thing I was going to ask is, can we pull it up? Can we pull up the plat that we had? Well, not that just yet. I really like this one that just shows the property there, so that we can see as they talk about where they're neighboring him and so forth. And I also think it's good to see the size of some of the other lots right around and so forth, across the street and so forth. There you go. That's perfect. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. All right. There was a young lady that was going to come up. Thank you.
So my top two concerns about looking at this
Please say your
layout,
name.
my name is Caroline Mayo. I live at 270 North, 100 East. And my maiden name is Hendricks. That's the Hendricks home.
Okay.
So my top two main concerns with this is parking. And I hear that they will have 2-car garages. And with 2 cars in the garage, they'll have the open driveway. And then what happens during holidays is they will still park on the street. And the answer was, well, yes, they'll park on the street, but my family parks in front of our house. And what you're looking at right in the middle of that middle house, you're looking right across my front yard with that sidewalk. So we're looking west right now, and those tree branches could be my front yard trees. So we park right there on that street. And we try to be really good, friendly neighbors and share the front yard parking with our neighbors during holidays. But with those 4 extra houses, that's going to increase parking really heavily. And it would be very unfortunate if that had an influence on any relationships with those new neighbors because of a simple thing as parking. So an option could be, I'm looking still at the same picture facing the west.
Okay.
Between the north and south back houses, I don't know if those yards would be owned, part of the lot with that fence back there, but that could be paved for extra parking or put in for gravel. So that could be an extra parking area. And I think that would be even more appealing for the community if we knew that there would be sufficient parking besides just 2 spaces in the driveway and park on the street. And then the next thing is in Bridgeside. I don't remember the subdivision names. That's just right down there. I think it's Bridgeside subdivision.
Brookside.
Brookside, thank you. The Brookside community, when they were being built and the first owners who were there, they had a lot of flooding problems. And the community, the 55+ community, they've had to bring in so much dirt to help fill in that flooding. So I don't know if the Brookside developers just weren't aware of the water table down when they were building the Brookside Village. But it'll be really important to set these houses up for success to make sure that they don't flood. Because if this goes through, I hope to have good relationships with the neighbors and not have it be incredibly transient because of flooding issues. So if they're going to build here, they need to be able to trust that the developer will build good, solid homes. My husband is a plumbing apprentice, and he works with other people. He works alongside other people who are working on other developments. And he can say firsthand that they're cutting corners legally, but things are being cut so that homes can go up faster, which is unfortunate. So with these homes, it's only 4 homes, and they need to be really solid. They need to have trustworthy crews, a trustworthy leader, They need to be able to hold the water table and be able to function well in that area.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
Just to help me to make sure. This being the property, if I understood you correctly, you're across the street this way
exactly.
in one of these homes here?
Yep, 270. I'm right across the
This
street
big
from the
L.
foreigners.
The big L shape,
Yeah,
is that correct?
exactly.
Okay. And then there's two other houses right out in front.
Mhm.
How long have you been there?
30 years. I am the daughter of the original owners.
I was gonna say, you must have been born.
Yeah. Yeah.
My reasoning is, have you had flooding there on this property?
No, when the house was being built, my father made sure to talk to the man who was building it to make sure that they had an excellent foundation and that the slope was correct and the plumbing was well drained and everything was set up for success for, 30 years.
For that house for your house on the L-shaped lot,
Mhm.
on the two houses in front, were those built after this home on the L shape? Aren't they relatively new?
Yes,
Do you know, 4
actually,
or 5 years, something like that?
the one on the end, the
Yeah.
small one, that was there. That's been there a long time as well.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
Woods who live there,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, know them.
The question what I was getting at is, with your experience and growing up out there and everything, those other two lots across the street there, have they experienced flooding?
I'm not sure. You would have to ask
Yeah,
the
no, I'm
owners
just,
here.
I'm just curious.
But the family who built that home originally, they also oversaw the building of that. And just
Yes.
based on speculation, I imagine that they wanted a really good solid home because they were building it for themselves. So, and it was just the one lot. So I'm sure that they
Yeah.
made sure to look out for themselves with that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and I also forgot something.
Sure.
The 55+ community, they will not have full-size roads. So I worry about emergency vehicles coming in and out of there. So with this new development, it needs to be able to support emergency vehicles coming in and out of there. So that needs to have a full-size road to support that. And it shouldn't have an HOA. It needs to be city maintained for the snow plows and for just regular road maintenance.
Well, and I think a part of it is there are zoning requirements, opportunities for property owners of what they can do and what they don't have to do and all things. And so I think to some degree there's private drives, there's codes that address the issue of how wide roads are, things like that. Also, as everything goes through the process, you have the fire marshal that looks and to make sure things are adequate. There's a tremendous amount that goes on behind the scenes, other than this aspect of it here, to make sure all of those guidelines are followed and things like that. So, and hopefully, the observations of your husband of other situations or something, that's unfortunate if there are, but again, there's inspectors that inspect those processes all along and so forth. So hopefully the system's in place and can be followed and everybody. I can guarantee you from experience, the last thing you want to do is have a property that doesn't drain properly, that floods, especially after you build your homes and all of that, because the cost then to mitigate that problem is tremendous. So there's a tremendous amount of oversight that's done to ensure that those things don't happen. Doesn't mean that something might happen that doesn't allow that, but there is that way. Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it. Anybody, anything else? Yes.
I just have a few questions because
Please state your name.
I'm Sue Garner and I live at 285 North 100 East. I live right next door to the plot.
Okay.
And just before Brother Reinhardt passed away, he was approached by the people that were building this 50 and older home, and they wanted to charge him $5,000 a day because of the water that was running down from the other homes that was flooding his land. And he's been told that is swampland. And they have been working on that, and I have seen more big trucks hauling dirt in there, and the dirt just sinks. I don't know how those homes really are gonna stand on it. And that worries me. But, I mean, this home, of course, he says there's about 10 feet, because like I said, it's almost up. Actually, where our fence is built, we have another foot of land that goes over there, but I've never fought with it, because we just figured the fence is there, we'll just let it go. But I just, you know, if they're gonna have kids and that in there, I just don't want them climbing the fence all the time, because it's so close to our house. And it's just, I hope it's nice, because to me, to look at this, especially this back house, I don't see how an ambulance, if they had to get back there or whatever, they'd have to park out in the street and then try and go in to get into that back house. And that, but I know that the people that are building here really caused some mess, and they're just ruining our street right now, going up and down the road with those big trucks. And it's not rocks, it's just dirt. And the dirt just keeps sinking, because it's a swamp. And that whole land has been swamped, and they were told that before they bought it, that it was swamp and it wasn't gonna hold a lot of homes. So that's my concern also, is the parking, because, you know, we have people that comes, and I don't want my parking lot all, you know, my parking space all gone just because of somebody that's living next door that doesn't have a place to park.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, sir.
Chairman,
Yes.
I just would like to comment on parking. This is a 26-foot wide road. Parking widths or lanes are 12-foot wide. So in order to maintain the traffic flow, there isn't set parking for this street. This street doesn't have on-street parking as a width. Now, some may be doing that and it's not prohibited, but at a 26 to 27-foot wide road, that shrinks the narrowness of a road, so that the 2-lane road that's 24 feet wide is being inhibited already. That's correct.
So if people are parking out there on the edge of the street, on the edge of the asphalt or the dirt to the side of the right of way.
Yeah, on the dirt is outside of the roadway, but the roadway, if the roadway is 26, it requires 20 for a fire. At that point, we're not there. Nobody should be entitled to have a parking spot on the side of the road, because the road's not wide enough, isn't built for parking on the side of the street.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Diane Siegfried. I live at 61 East 200 North on one of those long half-acre properties. I've been here for over 40 years. My concern is a little broader to address, and that is those of us who have bought into established, or we thought fairly established neighborhoods, are consistently being asked to accept completely different arrangements. A number of us have half acres. Obviously, we are willing to pay taxes to have greater space, yet each couple of years we look around and there's another development coming in, which means that in our established neighborhood, we're now experiencing the noise, the debris, the dust of construction, as well as a changed environment, quite frankly, for the whole established neighborhood. We're in the historical section, and yet we're getting these recent requests for, we want to put more than one home on a lot. I just want to share that as a longtime resident here of Providence, who has paid my taxes for a larger lot, I'm dismayed to see that we keep changing established neighborhoods. So I just share that concern and would ask you to consider that as well.
Thank you very much. Is there another hand over there, or did we get yes, sir?
Neil Barner, I live at 285 North, 100 East. My wife spoke.
Okay.
Most of the concerns have been brought up already. Again, on the water table there, going down our street, when they're from 100 north down our street. The water does come down in the summertime or spring especially, and it does come down and it covers the whole road in places as a flood. And we don't mind it so much because it waters our front yard. But that water is going to be that way forever. I mean, they've got the water rights, and that's a 100-year deal. So
Yeah.
The other thing about the property north of this property where they want to build those homes, they have been bringing in rocks, but they disappear. I mean, they sink down. They'll bring up to 5-6 truckloads a day, full big, heavy. I don't know how many tons are in those, but they've been trying to build that up, and they're having a lot of problems with that because when they get to further north on that property, it slopes down about 10 feet before it gets to the swamp there. But the whole area under there has got many, many springs in it. And that in itself keeps that dirt green year after year, all year long. When the Nielsen's owned that property, he could go out there and hay, didn't ever have to water anything in there. But I know the table for that they were supposed to check with for the depth where they had to go down. That was less than 12 feet. What I understand that they went down. I think Scarlett can back that up. That they have to go down 12 feet in that property, and there's so many springs that I know they'll have a problem with that, but I think everything else has been addressed.
Thank you, Neil, very much. I would like to just make the comment as we move along here that I remember that property coming before the Planning Commission before to the north, and where they're bringing all the fill and dirt in and all those kind of things. And there were requirements placed on it, were studies done, and to the full extent, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know that there was a lot of that. And it sounds like maybe what the reports identified at that time, maybe a little bit of some of that has changed and has impacted it. But what I want to do is I feel I need to bring everybody back to our purpose here tonight is to deal with this piece of property and so forth, and what options landowners have to do and so forth. And there's been some great issues brought up. Parking's always an issue. And as we talked, as was mentioned by city manager, the width of that road supports emergency vehicles and so forth. And it's not, although there may not be signs out there, no parking on the side of those roads, it's not intended for that. It'll be off on the shoulder. So anyway, I appreciate those comments. I also appreciate the issues of the water issues and so forth, because all of those things will need to be addressed. And it's coming across here. The property to the north is just getting it after it's passed by several of your properties and so forth. So I would invite, I want to double check if there's any other comment anybody would like to make at this time. If not, I'd like to invite Danny up to address some of these issues, talk about it, or whatever he'd like to share with us at this time. And maybe it'll answer some of the questions. This is not a final plat. This is a conceptual drawing.
It's not conceptual. That is provided by the contractor, but is not
Yeah.
reviewed. It has not
Yeah.
been passed through any application process.
Okay. So
It's pretty,
it's
though.
just an idea that he's presented to give you something to look at. It hasn't been gone through all the details and regulations and all the efforts that take place once once something's been submitted for processing. So Danny, with that, if you wouldn't mind coming forward, and if there's anything that you want to say, address, you're more than welcome to. If you don't feel the need at this time to do it, that's all up to you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Danny McFarland. Thanks for your time. Yeah, like Ryan Snow said, this is just a rendering that's kind of a request of planning commission, something that could be a visual. But it's, it's been laid out based upon the zoning standards, it has some basis to it. So yeah, there's a few comments. I like the feedback from the people that are here. So as far as the irrigation tailwater, I did talk to Brian Olson, who works with the irrigation company. I do know that the 55 plus project does have a pipe that has been required for the city to handle the tailwater. We'll just continue that water right through this property to that pipe. So there will be adequate places for that water to go. We want to make sure that that's taken care of properly. As far as parking, like I was talking to the individuals that are here, I made the comment, each home will have a 2-car garage and a parking or in a driveway, just similar to the homes in the neighborhood. It'll be the same situation. I would be willing to provide, I think that Caroline made the suggestion in the kind of the west side between those two back homes, maybe some additional parking that I think, 4 to 6 stalls, and we could put pave some additional areas back there. I think that's a good suggestion. As far as flooding goes, I'm gonna.
Right.
I built this home about 4 years ago, and we have a basement there and no flooding. These will all be slab on grades. They will not have any basements. And so I'm familiar with the area. Actually, I had 2 houses in that neighborhood and didn't have flooding in any of them. As far as quality of the product, I guess it's only as good as my word, but I've produced a lot of, I think, quality products in town, and I live here, and I don't want to have a bad name. Emergency vehicles, it's a 20-foot wide driveway, which is, Providence City allows private driveways. 20 feet is the fire code width. So a fire truck can access those rear homes. There'll have to be a turnaround that'll be, incorporated, and we'll make sure that's handled appropriately. Setbacks were brought up. Yeah, it'll have to meet setback requirements, which is 10 feet on the sides. As far as kids playing on the fence, I don't know what to say about that, other than we could put barbed wire on the fence. I don't know. I mean, kids are kids, I guess. We don't have to put a farm or the kind of farm fence. Maybe it could be more of a solid fence. Yeah, I understand. So the last comment, as far as taxes go, we each pay very little tax for the land that we own. The tax amount is mostly based off the homes. And so I respect what was said last about that, but I don't think that gives anyone a right to dictate, how someone else can use their property going forward. And infill development like this is actually the most cost effective for the city, because instead of having one home utilizing the services on that street, you're going to have 5 homes using the services on that street, which is a real cost effective situation for the city and for the public works department. That's about, and we can, I'm assuming curb and gutter. I know it's required on the street.
Yeah.
I think there'll be some widening too. I don't know what the city right of way is.
You'd have to widen the 100 East Street to the 30-foot width at least,
Yeah.
and with curb and gutter on your side.
So
So
we can paint the curb, but no parking. We can accommodate that.
Whatever the city would.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
so-
there curb and gutter on the other side? I don't think there is.
it appears there is.
The east side.
The east side, the east side doesn't.
Sidewalk.
East side does.
East side does. Okay, thank you very,
So when you're looking at the range, you can see the curving gutters here.
Right.
And that's correct. So it runs all the way up to the corner and then all the way down to the roadside.
super, thank you.
So that's really all the comments I have. Are there any questions?
Hold on one second. Yes, you'll need to come to the microphone if you would.
You can use the desk at that point if you want to stay there close.
How big are the lots? You're gonna put 5 houses down
Yeah,
there?
their,
What's the lot size?
their requested zoning is 6,000 square feet. So,
Which is,
I don't know what that is off the top of my head. 0.15. Yeah, they'll be, about 0.15. There'll be 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. So,
6,000 square feet is a little under 0.14 acres.
So the requested zoning is similar to, well, the parcel zoning is not similar to the zoning to the north and to the east and to the west. So.
Thank you. Yes, if you'd like to come up to Danny, if you want to have a seat there, if that's all right with you. We'll give people an opportunity to,
You redo my name again.
you do, just so that
Diane
you will know.
Siegfried. Diane Sig. I'm at 61 East, 200 North. I fear that the only thing that was heard from my comment was that I have a certain tax base and I'm concerned about what somebody else would do with their property. Let me reiterate what my concern was, and that is in an established neighborhood, it keeps changing. And sorry, but I'm the one that's going to be hearing the noise. I'm the one that's getting all the dust. I don't get anything. I have no benefit. So what am I gaining when things keep changing in my established neighborhood? We've had the condos that were built with the assisted living, and there was a lot of us were here to say, we got some mixed feelings about how this is going to go, because that had been open land and fit in with what most of us thought we were getting when we came in and bought our properties. Similarly, we've had the other exchange with the property that was I can do this, pasture, that those folks that owned that had said, we don't want to have to sell this, then ended up, okay, we will sell it. Then we as established neighbors here, oh, we're going to put in another assisted living concept. So once again, the infrastructure, the noise, the debris, the construction, we're all getting to have that as part of our established neighborhood and a change in what we thought our neighborhood was going to be. I appreciate that, yes, that is their property, but we have our properties. Does this mean that if somebody else moves out and they have a big enough piece of land nearby, they too can come before you all and say, oh, we'd like to put in 2 homes here instead of the single home that used to be there? So I think my main point is we thought we had a certain type of neighborhood. Yes, I appreciate life is changing, et cetera, but our neighborhood seems to be the one that's getting an awful lot of requests for modification. So that was more my point than taxes. It was just to simply reiterate that obviously we bought some property with an expectation of what that neighborhood would remain being for our span. Okay,
I appreciate that very much.
okay.
Diane.
Just wanted to make sure I
Yeah,
was being
no,
heard.
Can
I
I
appreciate
comment on that?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I appreciate what you said, and I think, it is changing, and a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, I drove all the way back to New York City with my family and back and drove through the Midwest. And if you want things to never change, you live in some place that has no growth, and that those places don't change and they're dead, they're stagnant. Like, we live in an area that is changing. I have 4 kids. I want my kids to live here. And so the status quo is not going to work anymore. It's not going to work. I mean, I don't know how long ago you bought your home.
43 years
And
ago.
I bet you probably bought it
And
for
I have
under
no children.
I bet you bought it
So,
for under $100,000 at the time. My kids are looking at houses that are costing $400,000 or $500,000. So the idea of established neighborhoods and neighborhoods staying the same and static is not sustainable. Or
We see sustainability a little bit differently. I
yeah,
think,
and that's
but-
fair enough.
And I appreciate you have children, you're looking out for them too. I'm just suggesting that as a community, we don't keep altering for those of us who have been here and suddenly find that that's not the neighborhood we thought we had. and have invested a great deal of our life and our time and our monies to accommodate and achieve.
Diane, there's several lots you can look at throughout the valley that were bigger lots at one time when they were first done, because a lot of them were house in the front and garden and pastures in the back and animals and all of those kind of things. And over the course of 30, 40, 50 years, a lot of that has changed. There's still some of them, but there's been a lot of them where they become a flag lot, if it's just the one lot, or if a developer comes and buys multiple ones. And so, but my thought was, if someone came and bought one of the half-acre parcels next to yours, or that individual, for whatever reason, decided to sell and leave because of the value of that, and they came in and they met all the requirements to have a 2-lot split, those are things that could happen.
I appreciate that. I also know people who are my friends who live in Providence and who have chosen to leave Providence because their neighborhood was so dramatically altered. And it was not what they thought they were going to have when they purchased their home. So I appreciate there's all this. I'm just having to be a voice that
Well,
says, hey.
Yeah, well, and it's great for us.
My concerns to be recognized as equally as anyone coming into development.
And that's great, and that's what these public hearings are all about, is to try to find balance. It happened to be that this part of Providence had a lot of large parcels of land.
Many of us
Yeah.
chose to be.
Yeah, well, and it started that way years ago, many years ago, and progress and growth and needs and so forth. So it's hard because otherwise you move out farther out in the valley or things like that. But yes, it is great to hear both sides and to keep those things in mind and so forth. So I really appreciate you showing up tonight and sharing your feelings and thoughts. Danny, anything else you would like to say at this time?
No.
Okay. The commission, the members of the planning commission will discuss this as we move to the next part. So at this time, if there is no other comments to be made, have we had anybody come online or submit anything in this last little bit? If they haven't, we will close the public hearing portion.
I make a
But-
motion to close it.
Yes, let me go ahead and make your comment. Your hand went up a little bit before Joe's did.
My name is Caroline
Yes.
Mayo, and I am just wondering if the animal rights with this new neighborhood will be changed at all? Because I just want to be an advocate for the new people who are going to live there. If they want chickens, they can have chickens. If they want dogs, they can have dogs. So I just want to ask the question, will their animal rights be changed at all? Because they're in Providence. So, and Providence has animal rights and they can have a rooster if they want. So I'm just wondering if they can have the things, if animals, if they want.
That's a great comment.
A note on that, animal rights oftentimes follow zoning. And so if it is higher zoning, agricultural zoning has more expectation for animals. A higher density zoning would have less of those. So that would be a possible change. I don't know exactly what those would be for this lot. But as you go from a less dense zoning to a higher density, there are those changes that occur.
So this would be higher density, right?
It is higher density than the request is higher density than it was currently zoned. So they are going to that's why they're in here asking for a change in zone, is it's going from a lower density to a higher density application. So
Closed, then they're asking for recommendation by the planning commission. And our recommendation can be rejected, accepted by the city council. The city council will make the decision. All we do is make a recommendation.
that is true, but their application is a rezone application, and that is their
I
application.
want the public to. I made a It's just a recommendation.
I know that their garden was beautiful. And my father often talked to them. And I want to make sure that their legacy of that land is protected. And I don't know why I'm so emotional, but
You
I
have
just
a lot
want to
of
make
memories
sure
there.
that, yeah, but if they want animals that, you know, in America, they can have animals. And so all these, you know, all these new developments happening, like Sig said, and so many people are saying, well, I wish we could have chickens, but the city said this, or, you know, HOA or whatever, you know, if it needs to happen, put a stipulation on it, that they can have a dog, or they can have a rooster and chickens, that just follows the regular city ordinances. And I understand, you know, with agriculture, but it should, their loss of freedoms with being able to keep animals on their own land that they built on would be, again, unfortunate because of just rezoning ordinances, especially with the Leonhardt land and how much good and love they put forth toward the community with their own garden.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, I will entertain the motion that was made by Joe Chambers that we close the public hearing regarding this matter. Can I get a second?
Second.
Have a second. Motion by Joe Chambers, second by Tyler Riggs. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Brian saying okay. So we will close this portion of the meeting. Thank you very much. All right. What we're going to do now is move to the legislative action items. And this is item number 2 on the agenda. The rezone of parcel 02-092-0018. The Providence City Planning Commission will discuss and make a recommendation to City Council regarding a request from DLMAC LLC to rezone parcel 02-092-0018 from R112 to R16. Parcel is generally located at 291 North, 100 East Providence. So at this time, I would invite Scarlett to come forward and kind of give us an overview and a rundown regarding the application and analysis.
Okay. I appreciate the comments that have been made, and I want to go through the steps just for a second, and then I'll go through the analysis. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
I realize that it would be a lot of times we want to know everything up front before we make a decision. Unfortunately, in land use, we have to rely a lot on the existing ordinances, and we have to make our decisions based on the fact that we know if the council chooses to change this to R16, that whatever we currently allow in R16 can be built in this area. That's the best we can do as far as giving people confidence in what will happen. If we have someone go to the extent and we go through all of the review process, and then we get to a legislative act to change the zone after we've done all of the administrative things, and the legislative act, they decide they don't want to, then we've created a problem for both the city and the applicant because we have gone way down a line. So we need to keep things in order. And the first thing is for the Planning Commission and the council to write the ordinances. And then once the ordinances are written and we have our general plan as a guideline, which the public comments on both those ordinances and the general plan, then we start relying on that as that's what we look at. Especially with single family homes, we don't get to look at, is it brick that we like? Is it paneling that we like? We don't get to even weigh in on that kind of thing by state code. We don't get to weigh in on that kind of thing on single family homes. So I just don't want people to be disappointed or feel like we're not hearing them. We are. It's just that our job is to look at what exists in our city code and what the state code allows us to do, and move forward one step at a time. This step will determine which zone, which then tells us what uses are allowed in there, what size of lots, things like that. So the first step that we're doing is this one, and they are requesting R16. And when we review a rezone request, we look at the Providence City Code, we look at the general plan, we look at the state code, we look at our master plans, and we have done that with this particular project. We have looked at Utah Code 109A505, which says the legislative body, which is the city council, to Joe's point, the planning commission is a recommending body. And you're the one that the state code charges with holding the public hearings, putting together doing the homework and putting together the ideas and the recommendations for the city council. So the legislative body, as in the city council, may divide the territory over which it has jurisdiction, so the properties within our city boundaries, into zoning districts. That's what the state code tells us. Of a number, shape, and area that it considers appropriate to carry out the purposes of Utah Code Title 10, Chapter 9A, and that's the land use portion of the Utah State Code. This has changed. I want to say that Diane Siegfried was on either our planning commission or our Board of Adjustments, I think. The Board of Adjustments. This particular code has changed significantly since the time that Diane served on the Board of Adjustments. And so I can understand how sometimes people that have been actively involved in the city and then stepped away, and you don't have to step away very long, only a year or two with the state code, and there are big changes. And so the zoning has gotten, it used to be that you couldn't just zone a little spot one thing and another little spot another thing. They actually had a term, a spot zoning term. That has totally changed. As the state code says, it can be a number, a shape, an area that the legislative body, the city council, considers appropriate to carry out the purposes of Utah Code. And then the legislative body shall assign a land use zone or a variety thereof to annex territory in the municipality. So when we do an annexation, you have to figure out a zone. Zoning is our basis. That's the first step to tell us how that piece of property is going to develop. The Planning Commission shall review and make a recommendation to the legislative body for amendments to the existing land use regulation, which is a zoning change. One of the things is a zoning change. It's also code amendments. In Utah Code, it says before making a recommendation to the legislative body, an item described on a zone change, the Planning Commission shall hold a public hearing in accordance with Utah Code's requirements for posting, which we're doing right now, or we just completed. Providence City Code has established city zoning districts. We have a general plan and master plans that look at current development, anticipated development in the immediately surrounding area when we look at this request. Our city code Title 10, Chapter 5 defines and lists the regulations for sensitive areas. So I really appreciate all of the comments about sensitive areas. We as a city, we have to look at that. The developers have to look at that. We make them get reports and do their best so that when they do develop a piece of property, they do develop it under safe engineering guidelines. Our code also lists the uses in each zoning district, and it lists the area regulations, which means the size of the lot and the setbacks and things like that. I'm not going to read all of the uses, but since agriculture was brought up, in your packet, a summary of the use chart is in the packet, and I didn't number my pages. I apologize. I usually do. Anyway, on this use chart, under agricultural and related uses in an R16 zone, someone could keep bees. They can't do breeding or raising of animals for sale, food, pleasure, or profit, which is basically the larger animals. They can keep dogs, cats, fish, or exotic caged birds. They cannot do commercial crop production. They can do gardens and orchards for home use. And they can, if they meet certain conditions, do gardens and greenhouse plants and produce for wholesale or retail sales. So those are the things that they can do. The only two things that they can't do that Mr. Lenhart used to do is have the larger animals on there and commercial crop production. You can still do that in an R112 if you have enough room on your individual lot. If you're in an R112 and you've filled your lot up with a really nice big home and a really nice big detached garage, even though you could have a horse or a cow in that zone, if you don't have enough remaining on your nice big lot to properly house that horse or cow, you can't have it, even if it is allowed in the zone. There's a lot that goes into large animals. And so Providence has always been and tried to be a very animal-friendly community, but we do have to make sure that by doing that, we create a safe place, not only for the humans, but the animals too. That's the reason for that on the zoning. So our conclusions are that the city has divided the city into zoning districts. The Planning Commission held the public hearing. The city's zoning districts include both R112 and R16. The general plan vision and key initiative statement. This property is going a little bit different than the general plan. The general plan had recommended that it stay R112, but we are looking at R16, which we can do because we go through the proper steps. And remember, the general plan is a guideline. We also, it is keeping with the general plan as far as the framework, in that this parcel has the potential for neighborhood and residential development, and that's still how it's being developed. So while it's got a little bit smaller lots than anticipated, if we change to R16, it's still being developed as the general plan anticipated as far as the use, the residential neighborhood use. The property is located within a half mile of two local parks, which would be Brookside, and it's a half mile away from Cattle Corral. There's two neighborhood parks that are in the vicinity. One is Alma Lenhart Park and one is Uptown Park, which is the one by the elementary school. There's one regional park, which is Zellinger Park, and it's within 1 mile of two local parks, Meadow Ridge and Jaysville. It's within 1 mile of a neighborhood park, which is Brager, and it's within 1 mile of our other regional park, which is Von Bear Park. So it does have some park facilities within acceptable ranges. The transportation plan suggests this area of 100 East is a local road without limited access. So it would need to be improved to meet local road standards. A 66-foot wide right of way, and then the asphalt width would be 30 feet. So it will increase the asphalt width some. The developer is not required to meet the whole entire amount of that. We look at the center line and see where things go, and they have to meet their part on their side. And if the lion's share falls on their side, then that is the way it works. But they do have to build their side to our current road standard. We also look at the sensitive area. Sensitive areas that are non-developable are jurisdictional wetlands, slopes over 30% or greater, natural waterways, or open water. It's interesting, but groundwater is not a non-developable sensitive area. It's felt that groundwater can be mitigated. It's not guaranteed you can build on high water table. You have to be able to mitigate it. But if you can, then it is considered a potentially developable area. And so we look at that. This property does not have any non-developable areas or potentially developable areas as defined by Providence City Code. However, some neighboring properties have experienced groundwater levels within 12 feet of the natural grade, which the city code considers as hazard water table. A hazard water table or hazard water area can be developed, but may require mitigations. And we will work, if you change the zone on this, we will work with the developer to make sure that if there's mitigations needed, that will happen. Or not if the city council changes this zone, sorry. And we've talked about the use regulations. The area regulations are different. R112, the minimum lot size is 12,000 square feet. A minimum lot width is 95 feet. And the minimum side yard setback is 10 feet. In an R16, the minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet. The minimum lot width is 60 feet. And the minimum side yard setback is 7.5 feet. Both districts, the units are single family detached homes. The R112 allows for a maximum of 3.75 units per net acre. The R16 allows for a maximum of 5.5 units per net acre. One thing I'd like to address just a minute. We've talked about parking for a few minutes. Again, the state code weighs in a little bit on what the city can and can't do. We can treat entire zoning districts differently, but we can't just treat one project differently unless that project is a different type of project, like a special review was needed. This project wouldn't qualify for our special review. So we really can't treat it any different than the homes that are in the Brookside development. Our code requires, I would have to look it up, 4 parking spaces for a single family detached, I believe. And so they meet that. And we can't require more than what our code tells us to. So if the developer decides that they want to do something, because developers can do more than the minimum, we just can't make them do more. If they choose to, they certainly can. But we do have to be consistent in our application of the code. And we will work with Danny to make sure that we do the best we can on those type of things, but it's important. The state code is very clear that we have to be consistent with how we treat things. Prior to making the recommendation to the city council, the planning commission held the public hearing. So you met condition number 1. There are comments in Aaron Walker. He's our fire marshal and he has looked at this. So there are comments from him that don't exactly apply at the rezone stage, but they will be addressed as we go through the process. And Aaron Walker or someone from the fire marshal's office will be involved in every step. He's actually one of the more prominent ones involved in the concept step because we want to make sure the layout works really well. And so we do take care of emergency vehicles that way. The applicant has to continue to meet all applicable state, city, and federal laws, codes, rules. An approval by the city of any application or paperwork does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. So we have to follow the code. Even when the code allows change, it changes probably the hardest thing for people to deal with. It doesn't matter. And I know it seems like a certain area maybe has more growth than another. I can tell you up in the southeast area of the city over the last several years, we've we've gone from growing hay and horses and cattle to houses, and we've grown well over 100. I think the area that the southwest area of the city can say the same thing. In fact, they may beat us way over the 100. And so we have had a lot of growth in our city all over. And I totally appreciate that and understand that as being a lifetime person from here. But again, we have to follow state code, and state code allows people that own property, if they follow our rules, to develop that property. And so that's the reason we are here.
Thank you, Scarlett, very much.
I've got a question. Can you help define for me what net acre is?
Yes, the net acre, you subtract out any land that's dedicated for public use, is pretty much what it is. So you take out the roadways,
Park strip and sidewalk?
park strip, yes, the right of way area. If there was a park that was dedicated for public use, or if there was something else, not a stormwater, that even though that's dedicated for, it's generally an easement. So it's not a, doesn't usually belong to the city. So you don't have to take that out. And the developer, even though these are small lots, the developer will have to take care of stormwater, different than irrigation water, but they will have to take care of stormwater runoff and provide for that, so that the fact that they're taking what was mostly not mostly permeable surface and turning it into a significant portion of that now to non-permeable. They have to make mitigation through stormwater ponds or other alternatives that the engineers can come up with to capture that and slow it down or keep it and let it evaporate or dissipate until, so that the natural amount can continue to flow. But the increased amount from all of the housetops and the concrete and whatever else turns it into non-permeable, that they have to take care of. So there is a lot that they have to do that we try and keep, even though we're changing, we try and keep a lot of historic value in things like that.
Just further clarification on the net acre. In this rendering, the picture, this is a driveway, not a road, and that's not removed from the acre.
No, in fact, depending on how this lot was designed, and Danny could probably tell better, I don't know if they've actually done the survey or not, but they may not have any net acreage, because if the whole right of way has already been dedicated, then, and there's no additional dedication, while they may have right of way improvements, that wouldn't go against them. It would only be if they had to dedicate part of their property for public infrastructure improvements.
My question is, I wanted to make sure I understood you. Are you saying that once they file an application to change the zoning, you think that they have vested rights in that change in zoning?
No, they have vested rights that the application go through the process. Zoning is a legislative act, and I probably should have made that clear, and I apologize if I muddied the water on that.
It's a very complex area. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that I understood.
Yeah, no, once they file an application, since zoning is an administrative act or a legislative act, that means that the city council has a choice. They can say, even though this meets the eventual code, we're not ready for this development. Or they can say, yes, you will have to build according to our code, but yes, we will allow a change in the zone. Now, an administrative act, when if the zone is changed, or even if it's not, when a subdivision request comes in, then In fact, this is interesting because the way the state code is looking at changing. Right now, there are many cities that the city council acts administratively to approve subdivisions. There's a proposal now that the state legislature is considering that would prohibit that. Providence doesn't do that. We changed it a long time ago. And so you, as the planning commission, an administrative body or a recommending body, you get to use your administrative hats and you can approve the subdivision. But he's vested that you will go through that process. He's vested on a subdivision application that you will go through the process. And if he meets all the rules, you will approve it. So that's kind of the difference. On a zone application, the subdivision. That's the difference. The subdivision is administrative because if they meet all the rules, they get it. The zoning is legislative because even if they meet every rule, the council does not have to grant the request. So.
Anybody, any other questions? Comments or thoughts? Thank you, Scarlett, very much. Anything at this point?
So I just want to say that I want to say thank you. Thank you all for coming. I know how hard it can be, and I don't have any feelings and how passionate you can be about your neighborhood. I've been in your place. So I think we should take their comments. I don't think we should take them lightly. I think we should really consider what they're saying here. A big part of that for me is making changes to the general plan. While it is just a guideline, I think they put in a lot of work to set that general plan and to do all of that research and think of it. And I think we've been making a lot of changes to it. So I think it would be good to consider how many changes we have been making within the guidelines of the general plan. I do like to consider the areas around it, and there is a good case here for the other neighboring areas where they are a higher density. But if you look on the other side, it's not as high a density. And we did change the names of the codes, but we should probably remember that this is that what they're asking for is single family high density, which is similar to what's already developed further on in our agenda with the visionary property. So we do have a lot of that. We have the townhomes coming in. We have, I like to think about affordability, but we have planned a lot of that already. That is in process. And I think that's it. That's it for me. I just think that we should think about the quality of the life of the neighbors and the neighborhood, as well as the individuals who are going to be living here. They're likely not going to have much yard, parking, all sorts of things. I think if I were going to, make a decision, which is not my decision, I would think maybe 3 would fit here at the max and make it a comfortable place for the neighborhood and for the new homeowners.
Thank you, Sean, for those comments and so forth. I think one of the things, I came in on the tail end for it, I believe, around the development of the general plan or right after. And a lot of that effort that was put in, I think over a couple of year period or whatever, was done to make these changes to address the progress and activities and concerns of Providence, and at the same time to bring in flexibility that people that owned their land could have a choice of what they did with that land, and to be flexible. That was one of the big things I see, and to try to be able to have people have opportunity to do things and move forward that way, and as best we can. So and then it goes back to, if this is what the general plan and the codes allow us to do in the development, that landowners could have that right. I also think because we have had a lot of townhouses and condominiums, we worked hard to keep them in an area to allow people to have something more affordable, but also smaller homes and smaller lots is a way to keep that price down. You can look at the typical homes now at $400,000 or $500,000. And some of them were even going up higher than that. And if these homes were in the 300, 350, I don't know what Danny's will look at them selling, but it's a way for maybe someone to get out of a townhouse and get into a home that has a little bit of a yard. Because most of those townhouses and so forth don't have a whole lot around them for that, or it's a common area. So it's kind of finding that balance. That's what we've got to try to do, is find that balance.
Can I follow that up with a question?
Yes.
So I always think one of our key initiatives is to preserve the sense of place by identifying characteristics that define Providence as a unique place. So, I mean, I'm just thinking, yeah, definitely we want to respect property owners' rights. But are we going to let every property owner, build another home in their backyard? Will that reserve the sense of place? What do you see that as here in Providence?
Question. Anybody have some comments or want to make a comment?
That's fine. So I think the vision of what Danny has here and his reputation is great. And if this were coming in and saying, I want to do 3 lots of what is on this page, I would be all for it. But because it is a rezone, and I just think, yeah, we're changing 1 lot to the zone that it is above to the north. And on one hand, you can say, okay, that's cool because it's adjacent to a zone that's like that. But then I really am sensitive to the Varners because they bought into that property thinking this is an R112 neighborhood, and now they're adjacent to an R16. And I'm Mr. Let's build as high density as we can in the appropriate places. But to me, I really, really empathize with the people who are in this neighborhood, and kind of just said enough is enough. And in this case, where it's a rezone, or especially where we're just making a recommendation, I say, even though this looks like a great development, I have a hard time saying that we should recommend it. So if we get to a vote tonight, I would be voting to recommend denying the rezone request.
Thank you, Tyler. Anyone else at this point? Bob?
I've got a question and a comment. What is on First East there, what is the width of that lot, that whole property? How many feet? Which property? The property that we're talking about, the rezone property. 0.9 acres. What's the number of feet along the roadside?
Like which way? I'll measure it.
It's on the 100.
Right here. Oh, what's that number of feet here?
Like north and south.
Yeah.
220.
That is approximately 200 feet. North to south.
16.5 feet of rock. We got the rods up there.
I don't measure in rods.
So,
Well,
okay.
on the
A long time ago.
On the flat.
I was just using GIS.
Yeah, I know, but Bob's got the flat up.
So I can't read that. So, about 200 feet gives us barely enough room for the width of 2 houses along that road. Right?
The lot size of R6 is
Lot size,
60
That's the
feet.
current though.
in the current zone. So having 3 homes in there, I don't know how you even have 3 in there.
You rezone it
Without
to
rezone,
R6, right?
So with 60 feet, it's still kind of short.
You're 3 and you have the 20 foot for the private drive.
Yeah.
It's about 2.
Yeah, you've got three homes on the road. Facing the road, unless the property in front of the middle house has a jog in it, there's not enough room with 3 houses in there either on the.
Other the challenges you're keeping that one in the center. which
Yeah,
takes a little
that makes it hard. You know, if that was gone and you had 4 houses, that might work. But to me, it seems like it's 3. It's not, doesn't even meet the frontage for 3 houses in there. So
In current zoning.
current zoning or for 3 houses on that frontage, it would be 120 feet, right? We've only got 100 feet to it.
Three
Get my math wrong?
houses would be 180 feet,
Or maybe-
3 lots.
Okay,
and then the 20 feet for the private drawing. So if it's 200 on
200
the
feet, okay,
frontage,
so we're good.
then you're
Okay,
you're
sorry.
squeezing it in. If it's really 200.
Doing math in my head is
But-
a strong point.
But under the current zoning, it's 95 feet
Right.
for that frontage, R12.
So you could have 2.
Yeah.
So current zoning would be really only 2 houses unless. I don't know.
Inner block.
Right, with the middle house, you'd only have 2, if really only have 2 houses. This way.
Well,
Right.
any other items? Give me just 1 second, right?
I don't know what to do. Maybe. To understand what Bob's saying, so with the current zoning the way that it is, you couldn't even put 3 houses on there.
No.
I'm sorry, you could. We have an inner block development statute that allows, I'm guessing that we could get 4 in the current, is that correct? Or is that too many per acre?
3.75 per acre, current zone, of the R112. But you've got to have 95 feet.
Yeah, but he's talking about the inner block development thing, correct, Scarlett?
Yes,
So
Kind of a
you
special
could put
consideration.
3 homes, but they wouldn't all have frontage on that road.
that's correct.
There's a difference between frontage and width. And it's a lot width. In the zoning, it talks about the lot width. They do have to have frontage, access to a city street. But that's how we're able to do some of the flag lots that we have done. Is because when you get back to where that new lot starts, that lot has to be 95 feet wide. Or 60 feet, depending on what the zone is. So it's not necessarily, it has to be that long along a street. But once you get back into the interior of the property and you're gonna create another lot, that lot still has to meet the 95 width rule.
You kind of gerrymander the lot shape to make that happen.
Yes, and the width, like if you were going to go in on a back lot, it wouldn't necessarily have to face like this lot is facing east, east and west.
Right.
But if you went in an interior lot, that interior lot may face north and south. Those 2 back lots may face north and south. And so then your width would be east to west instead of along the street, which would be north to south. So yes, Brian's right. It's possible to do 3 or 4 lots, maybe.
Yeah.
But you would still have to make sure you had the driveway and the emergency access.
Included.
Square footage wise, I don't think you could do 4. I think you'd be stuck at 3.
Thank you.
Especially with a house in the middle, I suspect.
Yeah.
Where that's already located.
Yeah.
So. And I just have one other quick question that, not for Scarlett, but thanks. Other than I need to ask you someday, what's the city gonna do when you're not here?
Please, Sam.
No, they do.
And this, I know this, we're talking about zoning, not about the design, but I am curious. Because I have a small lot over at Bear Lake that I want to build a house on, and to have a smaller footprint, I'm doing 2 stories instead of 1. And I don't know if that would look different and maybe be more appealing to have more land around and less house foot. Anyway, just a thought.
Thank you. Joe?
So
Then I'll come to you, Brian. Sorry.
Thank you.
go ahead and take Brian.
Brian, go ahead then, please.
Joe always has the last word. Okay, so I really appreciate number one, that Danny, the job that Danny has done in the city and his projects over the years. High morals, high, integrity. That's the kind of developer that we need. Do we need more development? I wish we didn't, but we do. These are very relatively, they appear to be relatively affordable homes in the rendering. I know we're not talking so much about that as much as we are zoning, but very much would appreciate more housing, under the 500 mark. I think Danny talked maybe going to 350 on these. They're not large, but I live up on Main Street, and there's a lot of families moving in there. They're the third and fourth and fifth family to own the home, and a lot of young families. And one of the reasons they move there is because of the price. And we're seeing anywhere from 4 to 5 kids, and then we're seeing single folks move in there as well. So I really like Danny's concept, Danny's ideas, and his integrity. And I think that if we were to give him as the landowner the opportunity to change zones, if there was somebody I would trust, this is one of the individuals I would trust. We've had some come in, and they have done it by the seat of their pants. That is, put these applications together by the seat of their pants, and we've not been able to touch. We can't even suggest a rezone, let alone doing any kind of development work. So I really like what I'm seeing for the families, future, the families. To me, it's all about families, and this will allow more families to move into the Providence area, whether it's my kids or my grandkids or my neighbor's kids. That's typically who's moving in. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Oh, my feeling is this is a conundrum. It's an interesting project, because this is where all of the problems may be going. But I look at it and I say, well, what was the purpose of the general plan and all the effort that the city council and citizens put into it? And their recommendation was that this property stay single family zoning. And that is what is zoned currently. And there's a lot of pressure on the city and the state legislature to get more affordable housing. But part of the zoning statute and the principles that the legislature says that the purpose of land use is for. I mean, these are vague concepts. It's what the legislature says, to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens, to promote the prosperity, to improve the morals, peace, and good order, comfort, convenience, and aesthetics of each municipality and each municipality's future, present, and future inhabitants, not just the present, but the future. Protect the tax base. It goes on. There's A through K on all of those. But I have to tell you that, and I'm going to use Diane as your name because I can't remember your last name.
Sue, go by Sue.
I feel less comfortable saying that. Mrs. Sig.
Trust me, I go by Sue.
I actually find her statement to be the most compelling point, that the citizens there live in a single family zoning. It's their community. The city council has decided to change
the status of the property to the north. The street is sort of a nice dividing line between the two communities. But on that street, this would be the only zoning in that. And to me, it's a little bit like spot zoning. On the other hand, I see the fact that, you know, I recognize that Mr. McFarland is a responsible developer. I'm glad I'm not on the city council and having to make the final decision on it. But I'm sort of leaning the same way my friend to the right is. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to abstain from voting because Mr. McFarland is a personal friend of mine and also a friend of my son. So I'm not going to vote.
Thank you. All right, any other comments?
Yeah, the only other comment that it made me think of is, 20 years, we talk about all of this may change in the future. And in 20 years, new people own all of those properties and they come in and say, hey, we don't care, rezone our property to that different rezone. And then let's do it all as the whole block. And that's where Providence, this type of neighborhood Providence changes in the future, is when the people who haven't been there for 43 years come in and say, I don't care. I want to make some money and sell my land and all that kind of stuff. And they all get together and say that. And maybe that day never comes in this neighborhood, but that's what would make them move. But there is a value of listening to the neighbors, and we're not, at least for our part, we're just making a recommendation. The city council will have to make a tough decision. It's a tough one because there's good arguments on both sides.
Thank you, Tyler. Brian, anything else you would add?
There is an example I'd like to bring up that recently happened and I know it's in that one state over there to the west, but in California not long ago, and other cities have done it as well, the city of Sacramento decided that it was time to be more lenient with the zoning because they wanted something that was more affordable than was available. And so their solution to the problem was to eliminate all single-family traditional homes and any property that was single-family traditional home in the downtown area of Sacramento, which is quite a large area, were deemed single-family or multifamily for up to 4 units on the property. Now they're at the other end of the scale. They're growing. They're going to have to go up and that type of thing. We're not going up so much, but this kind of thing happens, and we may have to do it in the future, and we'll continue to do it in the future. We're talking about an edge case here, and the edge case says, do we do it or do we not? When we do it, is it going to be there in 50 years from now? I don't know. We've got a lot of changes that are coming down the pike that we need to live with, and I'm leaning the other way. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. All right, if no one else has any other comments, I would entertain a motion regarding the recommendation to the city.
I'll float my motion to make a recommendation to deny the rezone of parcel 0209200018 from R112 to R16.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Tyler, a second by Shelley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I
do not, well, I can't vote.
He doesn't vote.
Joe showed up, so
So I have 4 votes.
I'll do it.
Okay. Okay,
Joe's abstaining.
Michael, you vote.
yes.
Take a side.
Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for reminding me. If anybody in this town has a reputation for doing a really good job and not just developing the max for the most money, It's Danny McFarland. The quality of his work and the quality of his projects and his commitment to all of that just stands as a monument in a sense as to what kind of individual he is and what he does. At the same time, this is not something that has been done all throughout that area. The community there, for the majority of it, is the larger lots. They have their neighborhood. They've been there a long time. And therefore, I don't think that the time is right for this. So my vote is for no. So we have
Your vote is no.
my vote is not to make the recommendation to rezone it from R12 to R6. So that's 3
So you're voting.
voting aye on the
Aye.
motion. Yes. So the motion does not carry.
No, the motion.
No, the motion does carry. That's just my dyslexia from everybody to understand. I see it one way in my head and my mouth comes out. So I've struggled with that all my life. So yes, my vote is to support the motion. So the motion passes 3-1 based off our voting. Thank you all. Danny, I appreciate all that you've done. And I hope you continue to look for those opportunities. Yeah, right. Thank you. Okay, and thank you. Yeah, go right ahead.
Officer Rocky Taylor, can we draft you back into service? We need animal control help in this town.
I am.
Oh, you are still?
Out there taking care of your animals.
Oh, God bless you.
And thank you all for coming and helping us understand.
Appreciate that.
That's what we're here for. Thank
Tell your
you.
neighbors next time they think we don't.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry for Vineyard that we had to wait so long to get to this point, but we will move on to item number 3, which is the Vineyard North subdivision preliminary plat. The Providence City Planning Commission will review, consider, and may take action on a request to approve the preliminary plat for the Vineyard North subdivision, a 74-lot, single-family residential subdivision located in the general area of 600 North, 300 East. With that, I would turn the time over to Scarlett. Allow her to come up and watch your head there and bring us up to date on everything.
So I think the lack of audience in this room on a vineyard project is worth mentioning.
That's right.
This has gotta be a first that we don't have
We should take a photograph.
just about, that all we've got is the 2 developers. This is an administrative action that we're about to look at. This is a request for a preliminary plat. So you are not making a recommendation on this one. You can approve, or you can, if you feel like they haven't quite met the muster, you can deny, and then they get a chance to come back and fix their errors and have you look at it again. But if they meet everything, we do get to approve it. Again, we look at state code and we look at the city code. State code has Title 10, Chapter 9A, Part 6, gives legislative bodies of a municipality, excuse me, the authority to enact ordinances requiring that a subdivision plat comply with the provision of the municipalities ordinances and the provision of Part 6 in the state code. And we also look at the general plan. We look at our master plans, our city code. We look at Providence City Code 8-1-21, which is the water availability requirements. When subdivisions come in, we want to make sure that we get the appropriate amount of water dedication so that we won't run out of water, hopefully. We also look at our city code 1132, which lists the preliminary plat requirements. And this is one, Ryan says it quite frequently, that Scarlett goes down and checks boxes. And if they meet it, we check the box. We might not like it, but we still check the box. If they don't meet it, we leave the box blank, even if we like it. If they don't meet it, we don't check the box. They have a couple of boxes that aren't checked, but they have done a couple of things in the past couple of days. So I think they actually do have a plat that checks all the boxes. But the one that was submitted didn't quite do that. They're not things that would slow it down, though. They're things that they could still bring forward to you, and you could approve it with conditions if you chose to. One of the things is that on the preliminary plat that was submitted, that this review was done on, there were some permanent buildings. We asked for permanent buildings within 100 feet, and there were some permanent buildings that they didn't show on the west side of the property, just a couple. But that's why it says permanent buildings and structures within the corporate lines, within and adjacent to the track. Or excuse me, and corporate lines within and adjacent to the track. They showed the corporate lines, but they didn't show the permanent buildings and structures that are adjacent to the track. They also, if I remember right, it wasn't certified by the surveyor. I mean, it was prepared by a licensed surveyor, but I didn't put that in red. So you changed that. Is that one that you changed last minute?
I'm sorry, one more time.
The surveyor, did you get the signature on the plat? Stamp, surveyor's stamp?
Yeah, it's them.
Okay. But is it initial or stamp?
No.
That's what it is. So there's stamp, but it's not initial.
Stamped it, just not initial.
Yeah. So that's why that one's not checked. And usually I highlight the certified, and I apologize, I did not. But that's one that can be done. And then the phasing, when they initially did the concept plan, they showed us phasing. Then on the plat that was submitted, they did not. However, they did provide a plat that does show phasing. And that's the one that you have in your packet. It's got the purple and the orchid and the yellow, or the purple and the blue and the yellow, however your eyes see those colors. So they are showing their phasing now. So in the conclusions, we have enacted ordinances requiring that the subdivision plat comply with the provisions of the municipality's ordinances and the city code, or excuse me, the state code. This is one area where they are just outside of any park service. They're in an area which has a gap. Now, this is this part of the development is public. They do have, the other part of the development is private. They do have some features in there. This part of the development will put the amenities that go with the life cycle residential part of it. So they will those people be part of the homeowners association or not?
They will.
So they will have access to those amenities. So they will have some open space that way. A couple of the other things that they did above and beyond, but were required by the annexation agreement. They held the cap of 74 lots. They are providing those amenities that were for the original LCR development. They are also continuing not the entire trail, because this is no longer this is no longer the LCR design. It's a single family public standard subdivision. But they are providing the trail along 300 East and that wider open space look along 300 East. So they've followed the city code, and they've also followed the requirements in the annexation agreement with this preliminary plat. So our conditions, we recommend that they address the comments in red in the findings of fact section, and they provide the information for the water availability requirement, and that the applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, Providence City rules, laws, codes, ordinances. Approval by the city of any application or paperwork submitted does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. So that is what we found. There's also a letter from Aaron Walker. Some of his will be taken care of as we do construction drawings and final plat process. They've reached out to River Heights City. They've met with River Heights City. River Heights has not, they have included on the preliminary plat, they've included River Heights cross section, but River Heights hasn't reached out and confirmed that that's the cross section. So that's all we're waiting for, but they have included that. So, but that we'll have to check with River Heights and make sure. So,
Thank you, Scarlett. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah. There's no check mark next to location of culinary water improvements. Did you talk about that? I missed it, or is that something that needs to be done? It's page 3, proposed conditions of preliminary plat.
It's like the second item.
The second item down.
the location for the culinary, I think I just may have missed that checkbox because I'm quite sure they have the water lines, they show the service lines going in. And they do show on the first copy that I got, it wasn't on there. It was just that it was a poor copy and I couldn't see it. I couldn't see that they were showing the existing water line along 300 East. But then I went through our files, found a better copy, and they are showing it. And I apologize, I did not go back and check that box. So they have met that one. So that needs to be checked.
It is one of the conditions that they still need to provide, but I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the water availability requirements and what they typically do to mitigate that.
So this is something that state code is also possibly changing on. State code currently, or the state has a value assigned that cities can use as a common denominator. And generally we use 0.45 acre feet for indoor use. And then it's 0.64 acre feet for outdoor use, depending on the size of the lot. There's a little bit of variance there depending on the size of the lot, but on average, it's about an acre foot for single family lot, or just a little under. And really what the developers do is they need to show how much acre feet per year their development would require based on those standards. So they would take 74 times 0.45, and which is easy to do, but then there's the open space area, the land that they have to calculate and let us know. And then those two numbers together, they have to either dedicate that amount of water right or water shares. We will accept water shares in some cases, or they can pay a fee in lieu. But that is actually the Culinary Water Authority, which is our public works director by our city code. That's actually, they analyze our water needs. There was a time when we wanted people to pay fee in lieu because we had purchased more water a long time ago, and we knew that it was going to be time to pay for that purchase. And so there was a bit of time that we wanted people to pay fee in lieu so that we had plenty of money on hand to finish paying for that water we had purchased, which is a legal way to do that. Now, we do still accept fee in lieu if the council and the city and the Culinary Water Authority agree to that. But generally, we're looking for water rights or water shares, physical water. So.
Anybody, any other questions for Scarlett? Thank you, Scarlett, very much. I would invite the visionary representatives to come forward if they'd like to do that and have any comments they'd like to make. We've been on this thing for a while. You guys have stuck through it, and I appreciate that. And
Thank you.
I'm glad in so many ways we've got it resolved.
Yeah.
I did have one quick question for you, just to make sure I understand it right. Down in the corner was where it was proposed for a clubhouse and a pool, I think, or something like that.
Correct.
Is that right? Your neighbors had asked before if there was going to be fencing along that portion. Is that something you guys are going to look at doing?
We aren't planning on having a perimeter fence there, no.
Okay. I think what there is just a barbed wire fence there now
Right.
on their property. And it's just, I'm curious with the kids and things like that, playing there and everything else. I just thought it might be a safety concern, but that's up to you guys. Certainly not to have to go all the way up. I think the lot owners, homeowners and things could bear that. But anyway, I just want to follow up. Anybody, any other questions?
I'm curious about your plan for water. Do you have water rights that you're bringing with you?
We don't, we were planning on paying, feeling, thank you.
Okay, so this is Brian Marble. Do we have, you have no agreement with the city of River Heights yet to tie into, I don't know the street name out there, 600 South, yeah. There's no agreement yet, but you're working on that, is that correct?
That's correct. They did have a city internal meeting 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. And it was an agreeable meeting from what I understand, and I've spoken both with their public works director as well as their mayor, following up with that meeting. And they said that they had some requests and we're waiting for that letter, and that's where we're at right now.
Okay. So it appears as though if they agree to what we see on the preliminary plat, is that you will go ahead and finish that road in River Heights to include curb and gutter and quite a bit of asphalt there for driving. Is
That's
that
correct.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Anybody, anything else? I think it looks great. There's probably a line forming for buying homes, hopefully. I know there's a lot of people still looking. Any other comments that you'd like to make? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask just one question?
Sure.
When you get a agreement with River Heights, is your intent to do the road in 2 phases? Or is it, I mean, I noticed the small thing, but I'm a road guy. I'm sorry.
Oh, we would do the whole road together. I apologize for that lapse in judgment.
I just a road guy.
Thank you. Okay. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I think we're all been real familiar with this property and process getting us to this point, and I'm losing my voice. So I would entertain a motion in regards to
I've got more questions. I'm sorry. I thought we were done with the developer and ready to have internal discussions there. Can I ask another question or two?
Sure.
Just, I'll bring it up. I'm very concerned about the clubhouse. I don't think this is the right place to do it, but I really would like to see it in the development agreement that the clubhouse be done within the first 10 lots or first 5 lots, that it be in and completed. Since the promise was made to all these other folks, and they're paying their HOAs based on the idea that they would get this. Is that something we can put into this now, or do we do that a little later on? When are we gonna have a chance to do that? And I think the question, I'm not sure, I think the question is to Scarlett.
I know we made a change before that certain improvements had to be done on a
You would
portion
like
being
to request that they put the clubhouse in a different place? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, that it be
No.
done, built
To be
before the.
built as quickly as possible.
It would be in, so they call this phase 4, 5, and 6. That phase 4 is because they've done 1, 2, and 3 in the LCR development. So phase 4, the clubhouse and pool will be part of phase 4. So you're planning on doing that.
That's
as
the
part of
first
that.
phase of development.
Right.
Yeah.
But are you planning on constructing the actual amenities with that first phase?
Absolutely.
So that's what they're planning, Brian. They're
Okay.
planning on developing that area and also constructing those amenities with that first phase.
And that was done before we moved on to 5 or 6, correct?
The trail, however, will be installed, like you won't do the whole trail. You'll do the trail for phase 4, and then when you get to phase 6, you'll finish the trail along 30s, right?
That's correct.
But the amenities, the clubhouse and the pool will be done as part of phase 4.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Brian?
almost. We had a discussion and we made an amendment we made a statute change, I think that's the right term. So that in the past, and I think it was just multifamily high density,
Yes.
where they were required when they hit the 75% mark of completion that the amenities be completed. Is that going to take place in here, or is it just a matter of, hey, it's part of phase 4 and we're not going to, the city won't allow phase 5 or 6 until 4 is complete? How does that work? Did I ask a question or not? I'm sorry.
That it'll have to be completed as a part of phase 4.
Yeah,
And they won't be able to move on to 5 or 6 until 4 is at 100%.
That's what we asked them and they said yes.
Okay,
Those
great.
things.
I'll be
Well-
watching close.
But Scarlett, thank you.
Brian,
Yes,
if they've put, we have to follow state code a little bit too.
yeah,
If they've put
always and forever.
the minimum improvements in and they've put a bond in place,
Yes,
theoretically, they could start the process for one of the other phases. They wouldn't have to wait until phase 4 was completely done before
Right.
they start the final plat process for one of the other phases. So I don't think we could say that it would be 100% done before they could start another phase. But they would either they'd have to definitely have the minimum improvements done and a bond in place for the rest of the improvements that needed to be done before they could start another phase.
and how long typically will a bond last? I mean, how long is it good for before it can be claimed?
2 years.
Okay, great. So it would be a maximum, once the bonding starts, it would be a maximum of 2 years that they would need to get it done, or the bonding agent would jump in and go ahead and take care of it. Great.
I don't want to confuse the issue here, but
You need to be able to make.
I just make one comment. Maybe I shouldn't bring this up. I'm Dallas Nickel with Visionary. Our bond, I think what you're saying, Scarlett, if we wanted to record the plat before the improvements were done, we would go in and file a performance bond along with a warranty bond to be able to record the plat. That bond will not include dollars to build a clubhouse. That's private amenity. The bond is tied to public improvements. So, Brian, I think what you're saying, you're going down a road thinking that we're going to put up, if it's $1 million to build a clubhouse, that we're going to be bonding $1 million. And that's not.
No.
So is that, am I off track or?
No, that's exactly what I wanted to know is what tools do we have to make sure that clubhouse gets done as soon as possible? And if it's holding you to phase 4, 100% completion, great, then that's a tool that I hope we can use. I'd hate to see it just go on and on until 6 is done and, then we'll get around to it or whatever. I've seen some of those fall apart, not from Visionary, but from other places.
Yeah, and that's, I guess what I can offer is my word. And I know that in Providence, maybe that doesn't mean a lot. Although I take a little bit of offense to that. I would have built this house 2 years ago had we been able to. This sticky referendum process, stopped that. But trust me, Visionary would love nothing more than to have that clubhouse built. Tyler, you'd love nothing more than to have that clubhouse built, right?
You're going to increase my HOA fee. Looks like.
But Visionary wants to have this built. We have every intention of putting in the roads this summer. And we anticipate over the, fall, winter, building a clubhouse and a pool and having it open next summer. Summer 24 is kind of the target we're shooting for. So I can offer you that. That is our intent. I don't intend to bond for a clubhouse. I don't think the city can require it. I don't intend to do that, but we do intend to build it. And I hope that's good enough. So.
Let me ask a question. So, if that's your word, I mean, why couldn't you put the clubhouse section, that lot, call it, as phase 4, and then the next section as 5 and 6 and 7 to guarantee that you're going to do that first?
I'm asking you to take my word that I'm going to be building a clubhouse while I'm building houses. Houses pay for the clubhouse, right? So that's what I'm asking us to do is allow that.
You already built half of the houses, right? On the other parcel.
No, good.
Vineyard one.
Part of the reason the infrastructure that they would need to put in place to build the clubhouse makes better sense to do that whole street or to do all of phase 4 from an infrastructure point of view than to just do a little tiny chunk and do that and then everything else come along later. So while we really do want to see the clubhouse and the amenities there, we also want the infrastructure to be put in very systematically and to the best benefit of the citizens.
There's also a law that requires a certain percentage of development or a certain number of houses. I forget exactly how it's worded. Like you couldn't just say that one section. So there has to be a certain percentage as part of each phase.
Mhm.
And we make it a condition of approval.
Chair, couple of things here that I'd like to make sure that are clear for the commission. This is a preliminary plat for the 3 phases, right? And so this is approval of the 3 phases of the preliminary plat. At this point, you would approve or not, I guess. But assuming you would approve this, then they would come back for each phase to apply for a final plat, which this is not that. This is the preliminary plat for these 3 together. So your approval tonight would be approving the preliminary plat of these 3 phases. Then they will come back to you with final plats for each of the phases. If they don't get phase 4 done, you could hold approval for phase 5 would be your opportunity. I would, but at that point, that what is on the docket tonight is the preliminary plat of all 3 phases, not of just phase 4. Does that help to define what you're talking about tonight? Now,
Very
maybe
much.
another time to be able to approve just phase 4 and then just phase 5, assuming they don't do all in one phase. I'm assuming you're doing it in phases because that's what you're telling me, right? That's what it clearly says. So at that point, at each of the phases, when they come for final plat, you have another opportunity to approve. That is when you could hold that and say, well, we need you to finish before we approve you to go into the next one because you need to have finished whatever in this one. And that is your approval threshold. I don't want to say your stick, but anyway.
Well, I can say it. I was looking for the stick that the city has as they work this through. And so it's not the preliminary plat, but it's phase 5's final plat. And that approval will come through. At that point, we can ask as a planning commission, how is the clubhouse coming along? And so that we have some kind of say there. I was thinking maybe that there would be something in the city code. So I just want to know where that stick was, where that statute was, and to encourage them to finish the club. Very concerned about the clubhouse. To me, it's like a park or any other public amenity. I mean, it's not public, obviously, but to me, it's a big deal for all those people who live in both of these communities, or this Vineyard 1, Vineyard 2 thing. And I think that ought to be done as quickly as possible. So I understand now, if we're going to be able to watch this as we go through the final plat of the next phase, and that approval will come up and we can go back and look at the previous one. Thank you very much.
I add one thing to this, and again, I keep shooting myself in the foot. I should just shut my mouth, but I have a big problem coming up, just how I see this project playing out. Our full intent here again is to go what we call horizontal. I'm gonna put the pipe in the ground and I'm gonna build roads over the summer. I'm gonna start going vertical on a clubhouse in the fall, and I'm gonna start selling homes, in the summer, and they'll start going vertical in the fall as well. Sometime in the summer or fall, I see us coming in for final approval on phase 5. Just so that it's sitting on the shelf when we're ready to build it. Now that clubhouse will not be complete when I'm standing before you or John's standing before you asking for final approval on phase 5. I'm almost certain of that. But what I would ask is just understand, we can have the conversation. Hey, what's the progress? Hopefully you'll be seeing visual progress, right? The roads are improved,
Right.
Lots there, we're grading, maybe there's a building permit applied for, maybe it's going vertical. But just to understand that clubhouse, like people won't be splashing in that pool before I'm coming in asking for phase 5 final plat.
And I would say that at those stages of approval of final plat are your opportunities to test his word, I guess.
Yes.
I mean,
That's right. I don't
Good. Great.
trying to pull the wool over your eyes.
No, we just as long as I know where it fits, we don't need to have the discussion today. We can have it when the final on phase 5 comes through. We can have that discussion again. And that would be the appropriate.
final of phase 6.
Yeah. Is that okay, Ryan?
I follow up on the water. Where are we at as a city? Scarlett mentioned that we prefer for the developers to bring with them water rights or water shares rather than the fee in lieu. Do we have enough for enough coverage of water for that fee in lieu for this many homes?
At that point, our water master plan would affect that, and I'd refer you back to that or the 40-year plan. That's not currently on the agenda for the discussion for this meeting, nor would it be within the scope of the planning commission. But those documents would be available on our website for the 40-year plan and the water master plan. Just as a informational, we are looking to drill a well that we would then move rights to and would bring more water into the system. But at this point, our master plan doesn't have a problem or issue with these ones, but I would refer you to the master plans. But that would be where you'd get the documents.
And
It's not very, water availability requirements.
That's fine.
Okay,
I got a question that you brought up about the roads.
Yeah.
And all the plumbing and stuff underground. You not start all that plumbing and stuff on the roads in phase 5 and 6 until later, until you have a final plat?
Until later, right? So the phasing is strategic here, right? The sewer and the storm drain have to flow downhill. They're gravity systems, right?
Right.
So the low end of that system is phase 4. So I can build phase 4 and stub into phase 5 and phase 6. And then leave that pipe work to put in when we come in and want to build 5 and 6. I couldn't build 6 without building 4, but I can build 4 without building 6.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed like we're gonna build the roads. It seems logical to build them all and do all this stuff at the same time, but
It costs a lot of
you've
money.
got a plan for.
Yeah.
There's a good way to do it in phases, and you're not gonna have these roads until they're approved.
that's right.
Okay.
Well, and that'll allow them to sell some homes and make some funds to be able to pay for the continuation. Okay, thank you, Dallas, very much. Appreciate it. Does the commission have any other comments or question among ourselves regarding this? Like the idea that the phasing process, as Brian was concerned, that we have opportunity to do our best to ensure for the residents, whether it's Visionary or anybody else, a project like this. So
I would like to point out, looking back an hour ago when we were talking about rezoning the Leonhardt parcel, that parcel rezoning, we've already accomplished that here. I just want to point it out that this one, we made a suggestion, or we made a suggestion to the city council that when they when they annex this piece of property that's done now, that it be changed from agricultural to R16, single family high. And that's basically what we were doing with Leonhardt property, except we weren't doing the anyway, there is some real parallels here, I think, between the two developments. And that's all I've got.
thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody's good. No other questions? I would entertain a motion regarding the Visionary project for the preliminary approval for the 3 phases, 4, 5, and 6.
Carly, can I just ask again, there are a lot of unchecked boxes here, and I really appreciated your information earlier about the difference between the legislative and administrative. But you mentioned that we had to go down the list and check all the boxes. Are you confident that all of the unchecked boxes will shortly be checked?
Yes. And the condition is that they have to be. Say that in the mic.
Sorry.
That's okay. The condition is that they have to be all fixed before they can submit their final plat. Because you're approving this on the condition that they address everything that's not fixed. And I know I haven't been able to review it, other than they did do the phasing, and that one's in your plat or in your packet. But they sent a new plan this afternoon that probably addresses the rest, but I haven't looked at it because I had to see what you were gonna do, if you were gonna accept these conditions. So yes, these conditions will be done before they can submit their final plat application. So
For the phase 4.
yes, for phase 4. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And Tyler, I believe you,
I'll be abstaining just out of the beneficiary of the HOA. Take this pool, which you probably all want to be invited to when it's done, so.
I think that's a given.
All
right. I would entertain a motion if anybody's ready to do that. Move forward.
I'll go ahead and make the motion. I motion where we're just reviewing the phases primarily here, the different colors and structures of the phases presented. I'll make a motion to approve the final plat for Vineyard North. The preliminary plat, Vineyard North subdivision parcel 02004-001 and 002, subject to the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions as set forth in the staff report.
Thank you, Shelley. We have a motion by Shelley Nazer and a second by Joe Chambers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for your patience.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Did Mr. Hinkie bring the ice cream finally this time?
Good
guys. You guys supposed to bring snacks. Thank you.
Ice cream.
Okay. If there is no other business, we have no study items, and if there's no other business, I would entertain a motion that we close the meeting.
I'll move.
There's a motion by Tyler to close. Can I have a second?
Second by Brian.
By Brian, all in favor? Aye.